You have prayed for financial breakthrough more times than you can count. You have tithed faithfully, served in your church, believed with all your heart that God wants good things for you, and yet here you are, still struggling to make ends meet, still watching others prosper while you wonder what you are doing wrong. Maybe you have read every book on biblical prosperity, attended every conference, spoken every declaration over your finances, and still your bank account tells a different story than your faith confesses. There is a weight in your chest right now as I speak these words because you know exactly what I am talking about. You know the feeling of lying awake at 3 in the morning doing mental math, trying to figure out how you will cover this month's bills. You know the shame that creeps in when your children ask for something and you have to find creative ways to say no without letting them see your pain. You know the exhaustion of working harder than everyone around you while somehow having less to show for it. And deep in your soul, in that quiet place where you are most honest with yourself, you have wondered if maybe you just were not meant for wealth, if perhaps God has called others to abundance, but assigned you to a life of barely getting by. I need you to hear something right now, and I need you to hear it clearly. That voice telling you that you were not designed for prosperity is a lie. It is not the voice of your Creator, and it is not the truth about who you are or what is possible for your life. But here is what that voice has gotten right, even if it twisted the truth to discourage you. There is indeed something that separates those who build lasting wealth from those who struggle perpetually with money. And it is not luck, it is not connections, it is not even intelligence or education. What separates them is character, specific, identifiable, developable character. And the reason you have not yet experienced the financial breakthrough you have been praying for might have nothing to do with God withholding blessing from you, and everything to do with whether you have cultivated the character traits that make you capable of receiving, managing, and multiplying wealth. This is not about deserving in the sense of earning God's love or favor, because that is freely given and can never be earned. This is about capacity. This is about whether you have built the internal infrastructure that can handle the weight of wealth without being crushed or corrupted by it. What I am about to share with you today has the power to completely transform your financial future, but only if you approach it with radical honesty about where you currently stand. I am going to walk you through the specific character traits that distinguish those who build generational wealth from those who remain trapped in cycles of financial struggle. These are not theories or nice ideas. These are patterns I have observed in the lives of the most financially successful people throughout history. Patterns that align perfectly with biblical principles when properly understood. By the end of our time together, you will know with clarity whether you currently possess the character of someone who deserves to be rich. And more importantly, you will know exactly what to develop if you find gaps in your character foundation. This knowledge alone is worth more than any amount of money because it gives you a roadmap to transformation that no external circumstance can take from you. Let me begin by addressing something that might be uncomfortable, but is absolutely essential. The word deserve in the title of this message was chosen deliberately, and I know it might trigger something in you. We have been taught, and rightly so, that we cannot earn God's grace, that salvation is a gift, that we deserve nothing and receive everything through mercy. All of this is true in the spiritual realm of salvation, but we make a critical error when we take this theology and apply it incorrectly to the realm of stewardship and economics. In the parable of the talents, the master did not distribute resources randomly or equally. He gave to each servant according to their ability, and when he returned, he did not evaluate them based on need or desire, but on what they had done with what they were given. The servant who proved faithful with little was given more, and told to enter into the joy of his master. The servant who hid what he was given out of fear had even that taken away. This parable is not about salvation. It is about stewardship, about the kingdom principle that resources flow to and through those who have developed the capacity to handle them well. In this sense, deserving wealth is not about being better than others or earning God's affection. It is about developing the character that qualifies you to be trusted with more. John D. Rockefeller, who at his peak controlled wealth equivalent to hundreds of billions in today's dollars, understood something that most people never grasp. He understood that wealth is not primarily an external condition, but an internal one. Before the money ever showed up in his bank accounts, it existed in his character. Before he built Standard Oil into the most powerful company the world had ever seen, he had built something more important inside himself. He had constructed a foundation of habits, disciplines, perspectives, and virtues that made him capable of handling wealth at a scale most people cannot even imagine. And despite what his critics said about his business practices, his character in certain key areas was so strong that he was able to maintain and grow his wealth across decades, while others who acquired fortunes quickly saw them evaporate within a generation. What Rockefeller knew, and what I want you to understand today, is that character precedes wealth, always, without exception. You do not build character after you become rich. You become rich after you build character. This is one of the most important reversals of thinking that separates those who achieve lasting financial success from those who keep waiting for wealth to arrive and change them. I want to pause here and ask you something directly, and I want you to really sit with this question. What is your relationship with money right now, at this very moment? Not what you wish it was, not what you pray it will become, but what it actually is today. When you think about your finance, what emotions arise? Is there anxiety, shame, resentment, confusion, or is there clarity, peace, and purposeful intentionality? The emotions you feel about money reveal something profound about your current character in this area. Money is one of the most spiritually and emotionally charged topics in human experience, and your relationship with it mirrors your relationship with many other important things, including your relationship with yourself and often your relationship with God. If you find yourself constantly anxious about money, unable to think about it clearly, avoiding looking at your accounts, or swinging between extremes of hoarding and overspending, these patterns are not just financial problems. They are character indicators. They reveal that there is work to be done in the foundation before the building can rise. And here is the beautiful truth embedded in that difficult reality. Character can be developed. You are not stuck with the character you have today. The same God who transforms hearts and renews minds can absolutely transform your character in the area of finances if you are willing to partner with Him in the process. Let me share with you the first and perhaps most fundamental character trait that separates those who build wealth from those who merely wish for it. It is the capacity for delayed gratification. This sounds simple, almost too simple to be profound, but the ability to choose a greater future reward over an immediate, smaller pleasure is the bedrock upon which all wealth is built. Think about what wealth actually requires. It requires that you spend less than you earn today, so that you can have more tomorrow. It requires that you invest time, energy, and resources into ventures that will not pay off for months or years. It requires that you say no to things you want right now, so you can say yes to things you want more later. Every single aspect of wealth building is an exercise in delayed gratification. And yet this is precisely where most people fail, not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they lack the character strength to choose future over present consistently. Research in psychology has confirmed what wise people have always known, that the ability to delay gratification in childhood is one of the strongest predictors of success in adulthood. Children who could wait for a larger reward showed better outcomes decades later in education, health, relationships, and yes, finance. But here is what the research also shows, and what gives me hope for you. This capacity is not fixed. It can be developed through practice, through intentional strengthening of the will, through what the Bible calls self-control, which is listed as a fruit of the Spirit. How do you know if you currently possess this character trait at the level required for wealth building? Ask yourself these questions honestly. When you receive money, what is your first instinct? Is it to think about what you can buy, what immediate desire you can satisfy? Or is it to think about where this money can be directed for maximum long-term impact? When you see something you want but do not need, how difficult is it for you to walk away? Do you find yourself making impulse purchases that you later regret? Do you carry debt from buying things that brought you temporary pleasure but long-term burden? When it comes to your work, are you willing to put in years of effort building something that may not pay off immediately but has the potential for significant future return? Or do you gravitate toward whatever will give you the quickest paycheck, even if it leads nowhere? When you think about investing, whether in financial markets, in your own education, or in a business venture, does the idea of locking up money for years feel impossible, even if you know intellectually it is the right thing to do? Your honest answers to these questions reveal your current capacity for delayed gratification, And if you find that capacity lacking, do not despair. Recognize it as the first area where your character must be developed if you want to move toward wealth. The second character trait essential for building wealth is something I call purposeful industriousness. This is not simply working hard, because many people work hard their entire lives and remain poor. Purposeful industriousness is the combination of strong work ethic with strategic direction. It is laboring not just with your hands and hours, but with your mind engaged, constantly asking how your effort can be multiplied, how it can be directed toward building something of lasting value, rather than simply trading time for money in an endless cycle. Rockefeller was famous for his work ethic, but what made him different from millions of other hard-working Americans of his era was that his work was always purposeful. He was not working just to survive or to be seen as a good worker. He was working toward specific objectives, constantly thinking about efficiency, constantly looking for leverage, constantly asking how 1 hour of his effort could produce results that would have taken others 10 hours or 100 hours to achieve. This is the mindset of purposeful industriousness, and it is radically different from the grind mentality that keeps so many believers trapped in exhausting cycles of labor that never seem to produce breakthrough. Examine your own work life with clear eyes. Are you working hard or working smart? Are you building something or just maintaining? When you show up to your job or your business, do you bring your full creativity and intelligence to the task, looking for ways to add more value, to solve bigger problems, to create systems that multiply your effectiveness? Or do you do what is required, collect your paycheck, and consider yourself fortunate to have made it through another week? There is a passage in Colossians that instructs believers to work heartily as unto the Lord, and not unto men. This verse is often quoted to encourage hard work, but notice the phrase as unto the Lord. The implication is that your work should be excellent enough to be offered as worship. It should be strategic enough to honor the gifts and intellect your Creator placed within you. It should be purposeful enough to advance the kingdom purposes God has assigned to your life. When you approach work this way, you begin to think like an owner even if you are an employee. You begin to look for opportunities to add value that others miss. You begin to develop skills and knowledge that make you increasingly valuable in the marketplace. And over time, this purposeful industriousness positions you for the kind of opportunities and compensation that build wealth. The third character trait I want to highlight is what I call faithful stewardship of the small. This might be the most overlooked and most important principle in all of wealth building, and it comes directly from the teachings of Jesus. He who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and he who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. This principle operates like a law in the economic realm. How you handle small amounts of money reveals how you will handle large amounts. How you manage your current income, however modest, demonstrates your readiness for increase. God does not give greater resources to those who have mismanaged lesser resources, not because He is withholding punitively, but because it would not be loving to burden someone with more than they have the character to handle. Wealth without character leads to destruction, and a loving father does not set his children up for destruction. I want to stop here and speak to you very directly because what I have shared so far has likely stirred something in you. Maybe you are recognizing gaps in your own character, areas where you know you have not been faithful, patterns that you can now see have been blocking your financial progress. If that is you, I want you to do something right now. I want you to drop down to the comments and share with me and this community what you are discovering about yourself. What is one area where you know your character needs development when it comes to finance? Maybe it is delayed gratification. Maybe it is purposeful industriousness. Maybe it is faithful stewardship of the small. Whatever it is, I want you to write this in the comments below. My biggest character gap with money is blank, and I am committed to developing in this area. I know that might feel vulnerable. I know we do not typically talk openly about our financial struggles or character weaknesses. But here is what I have learned. Transformation begins with honest acknowledgement. When you write that comment, you are not just sharing with me. You are making a declaration to yourself and to God that you are ready for change. You are breaking the silence around a topic that thrives in secrecy and shame. And you are potentially helping someone else who is reading the comment and wondering if they are alone in their struggles. Your honesty might be exactly what another person needs to see, to give them permission to begin their own journey. So take a moment right now, pause this video if you need to, and share what you are discovering. I read every single comment, and I want to know where you are in this journey. Now let us continue with the character traits that distinguish those who build wealth from those who merely dream of it. The fourth essential trait is what I call principled persistence. This is the capacity to stay committed to your goals and principles even when circumstances become difficult, even when results are slow in coming, even when everyone around you is telling you to quit or to compromise. Wealth building is not a sprint. It is an ultra-marathon that most people abandon somewhere in the first few miles. The statistics on business failure, on investment abandonment, on people giving up on their financial goals, all of them point to the same reality. Most people lack the persistence to see their efforts through to fruition. They plant seeds and dig them up before they can grow. They start businesses and quit at the first major setback. They begin investment programs and sell at the first market downturn. They make budgets and abandon them within weeks. This pattern of inconsistency is not just a behavior. It is a character deficiency that prevents wealth from accumulating. But I add the word principled to persistence because persistence alone is not enough. There are people who persist in foolishness, who keep doing the same unproductive things year after year, without ever examining whether their approach is sound. Principled persistence means staying committed to your goals while remaining flexible about methods. It means holding tightly to your core values and vision while holding loosely to specific strategies that may need to change. It means having the wisdom to know the difference between a setback that should be overcome and a dead end that should be abandoned. Rockefeller demonstrated this principled persistence throughout his career. He faced countless obstacles, legal challenges, market disruptions, and competitors who wanted to destroy him, but he never wavered from his core vision of building efficient, systematic enterprises. He adapted his methods as circumstances required, but his persistence in pursuing his goals was legendary. And this persistence was principled because it was grounded in certain convictions about work, about excellence, about stewardship, that guided his decision-making even in the most difficult seasons. Ask yourself honestly, when things get hard in your financial life, what do you do? When your budget gets blown by an unexpected expense, do you abandon budgeting altogether? Or do you adjust and recommit? When an investment loses value, do you panic and sell, or do you evaluate rationally and stay the course if the fundamentals remain sound? When your business hits a rough patch, do you shut down and return to employment, or do you dig in and find ways to solve the problems? When your first attempt at something fails, do you conclude that you are not meant for success in that area, or do you extract the lessons and try again with greater wisdom? Your answers to these questions reveal whether you possess the principled persistence that wealth building requires. And if you find yourself lacking in this area, take heart. Persistence is built through practice, through small daily choices to keep going when it would be easier to stop, through developing what the Bible calls patient endurance. The fifth character trait essential for building wealth is accurate self-assessment combined with continuous improvement. This is the ability to see yourself clearly, to recognize both your strengths and your weaknesses, to receive feedback and correction without becoming defensive, and to maintain a lifelong commitment to growth and development. Wealthy people are almost universally committed to learning. They read voraciously, seek mentors, attend conferences and courses, hire coaches and consultants, and invest significantly in their own development. They understand that their earning capacity is directly tied to their learning capacity, that the skills and knowledge they possessed yesterday are insufficient for the opportunities of tomorrow. They are not defensive about their weaknesses, because they see every weakness as an opportunity for improvement. They do not pretend to know things they do not know because such pretense would prevent them from learning. This trait requires a specific kind of humility, not the false humility that denies one's strengths, but the accurate humility that acknowledges the gap between where one currently is and where one could be. The person who thinks they already know everything they need to know is a person who has stopped growing, and a person who has stopped growing has begun dying, financially and otherwise. Rockefeller surrounded himself with excellent people throughout his career, not yes men, but true advisors who could challenge his thinking and help him see blind spots. He was constantly seeking better methods, more efficient processes, superior strategy. Even at the height of his success, he maintained the posture of a learner. This is the posture you must adopt if you want to build lasting wealth. You must become comfortable with the fact that you do not yet know what you need to know, and you must become aggressive about closing that gap through continuous learning and improvement. How do you know if you possess this trait? Consider how you respond when someone points out a flaw in your thinking or your approach. Do you become defensive, making excuses or attacking the messenger? Or do you get curious, asking questions to understand more fully and thanking the person for their input? When you fail at something, do you blame external circumstances, or do you look honestly at what you could have done differently? When was the last time you invested money in your own education or development, not for credentials but for actual skill building? When was the last time you sought out a mentor or advisor who could challenge you and help you grow? When was the last time you read a book that fundamentally changed how you think about money or business or success? Your answers reveal whether you are on a growth trajectory or a plateau. And make no mistake, in the realm of wealth building, there is no standing still. You are either growing or declining. The marketplace rewards those who bring increasing value, and bringing increasing value requires continuous improvement. The sixth character trait is what I call generous confidence. This might seem like a paradox at first because we often associate generosity with giving away and confidence with holding on. But true wealth builders possess both in abundance, and more importantly, they possess them together. Generous confidence is the internal assurance that there is enough, that giving does not diminish you but expands you, that holding resources with an open hand actually attracts more resources, while grasping tightly repels them. This trait is deeply rooted in faith for the Christian believer because it rests on the conviction that God is the true source of all provision. If you believe that your wealth comes primarily from your own effort, you will hoard because effort is finite. But if you believe that your wealth flows from an infinite God who delights in prospering his children, you can give generously because you know more is always available. This is not prosperity gospel foolishness that treats God like a vending machine. This is kingdom economics that recognizes the principle of sowing and reaping, that understands generosity as both a spiritual discipline and a practical strategy for expansion. Rockefeller was famous for his philanthropy, eventually giving away the majority of his fortune to causes he believed in. But his generosity was not just something he did after he became wealthy. It was a practice he maintained throughout his life, from his very first job as a clerk. Even when he was making a modest salary, he was tithing and giving to his church and other causes. This lifelong pattern of generosity was part of his character, not just his checkbook, and it was connected to his confidence, to his unshakable belief that he would succeed, that resources would flow to him, that he was destined for significant achievement. People who lack this generous confidence live in what I call scarcity mentality. They see every dollar as potentially the last, every transaction as zero-sum, every other person's success as their loss. This mentality is spiritually destructive and financially crippling. It prevents the kind of strategic giving that builds relationships, creates goodwill, and opens doors. It prevents the kind of confident decision-making that capitalizes on opportunities. It keeps people trapped in small thinking even when large opportunities present themselves. Consider your own relationship with generosity. Does giving feel like losing or like planting? When opportunities arise to be generous, do you look for reasons to say no or reasons to say yes? Do you give systematically and intentionally, or only when emotionally manipulated? Is your giving proportional to your increase, or have you capped it at some arbitrary level? And what about your confidence? Do you genuinely believe that God wants you to prosper, or do you secretly suspect that poverty is more spiritual than abundant? Do you approach opportunities with the expectation of success, or with defensive pessimism? Do you believe you are capable of handling significant resources, or do you unconsciously limit yourself to what feels safe and familiar? Generous confidence is perhaps the most spiritually significant of all the character traits we are discussing, because it is so directly connected to your faith in who God is and who He says you are. The seventh character trait essential for wealth building is relational integrity. Money flows through relationships. Opportunities come through connections. Wealth is built in community, through partnerships, teams, customers, investors, and countless other relational networks. The person who cannot build and maintain trustworthy relationships will find their path to wealth severely restricted, regardless of their other abilities. Relational integrity means being trustworthy in your dealing, keeping your word even when it costs you, treating people fairly even when you have the power to exploit them, building win-win arrangements rather than always seeking to maximize your own advantage at others' expense. It means developing a reputation over time that opens doors because people know they can count on you. This trait also includes emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and work effectively with different personalities, to navigate conflict constructively, to communicate clearly, and to build rapport with a wide range of people. Wealth builders are typically skilled in relationships not because they manipulate people for personal gain, but because they genuinely value people and have developed the skills to collaborate effectively. They understand that no one builds significant wealth alone, that every great enterprise is a team effort, that the ability to attract and retain talented people is itself a form of wealth. Rockefeller, despite his reputation as a ruthless competitor, was known for inspiring fierce loyalty among his associates. He built a team of executives who stayed with him for decades, who believed in his vision, and who gave their best efforts to the enterprise. This was not accidental. It was the result of his character in the relational realm, his ability to treat people as valued partners rather than expendable resources. Examine your own relational life through this lens. Are there people who would hesitate to do business with you because of past experiences? Have you burned bridges through broken promises or selfish dealings? Do you have a reputation for integrity in your professional and personal circles? Are people eager to collaborate with you because they know you will treat them fairly? Can you point to long-term relationships with colleagues, partners, and business associates, relationships that have endured through difficult seasons? The quality of your relationships is a direct indicator of your character in this area, and if you find deficiencies, they must be addressed before you can expect significant financial progress. Building relational integrity takes time and consistent effort, but it is one of the most valuable investments you can make. The eighth and perhaps most controversial character trait is what I call righteous ambition. Many Christians have been taught to view ambition with suspicion, as if wanting more or seeking to accomplish great things is somehow unspiritual. This teaching has crippled countless believers, keeping them small when they were designed for significance, keeping them poor when they were created for prosperity. But the Bible is full of ambitious people who were celebrated rather than condemned. David was ambitious, seeking to become king. Nehemiah was ambitious, undertaking a massive building project. Paul was ambitious, wanting to preach the gospel in every region. Even Jesus spoke of a master who commended his ambitious servants and condemned the one who played it safe. Righteous ambition is the desire to accomplish significant things for significant purpose. It is not ego-driven self-promotion, but purpose-driven kingdom expansion. It recognizes that we honor God with excellence, with achievement, with the full deployment of our gifts and talents, not with smallness and mediocrity. Rockefeller was enormously ambitious, and he made no apologies for it. He wanted to build something great, something unprecedented, something that would reshape entire industries. And while we might critique some of his methods, his ambition itself was not the problem. In fact, his ambition was the fuel that powered decades of effort, that sustained him through setbacks that would have destroyed lesser men, that kept him focused on his vision when countless distractions threatened to divert his attention. The person without ambition will never build significant wealth, because building wealth requires sustained effort toward distant goals. It requires the willingness to take risks, to stand out, to be criticized for wanting more than average. Without the internal fire of ambition, people settle for comfortable mediocrity. They take the safe path. They avoid the challenges that develop character and create opportunity. They coast through life and wonder why others seem to accomplish so much more. What is your relationship with ambition? Have you suppressed your desire to accomplish great things because you thought it was more spiritual to want less? Do you have specific, ambitious goals for your financial life and your career, or have you settled for vague wishes and passive hope? Does the thought of achieving something significant excite you or frighten you? Can you articulate a vision for your life that would require you to grow, to stretch, to become more than you currently are? Righteous ambition is not greed, and the difference is crucial to understand. Greed is the desire for more for its own sake, for personal gratification without regard for others or for purpose. Righteous ambition is the desire to accomplish great things as an act of stewardship, as an offering to God, as a means of blessing others and advancing kingdom purposes. When your ambition is righteous, it does not diminish your character, but expresses it at the highest level. Now I want to speak to something that ties all these character traits together, and addresses the deepest question you might be asking. You might be thinking that all of this sounds good but wondering if character can really be changed. If someone who has struggled financially for years can actually develop these traits and see different results. The answer is absolutely yes, but the mechanism of change needs to be understood. Character change does not happen through information alone. You cannot simply hear about these traits and suddenly possess them. Character is forged through practice, through repeated actions that become habits, through habits that become second nature, through what the ancient philosophers called virtue development. This is why the Bible speaks so much about training, discipline, running the race, fighting the good fight. The imagery is all of effort, of practice, of persistent intentional action that shapes who we become. If you recognize that you lack the capacity for delayed gratification, you must begin practicing it today, not someday when you feel ready, but today. Start with small exercises of choosing later over now. Build your willpower like a muscle, through progressive resistance. If you recognize that you lack purposeful industriousness, examine your work life and make specific changes, bringing more intentionality, more creativity, more strategic thinking to your labor. If you recognize that you have not been faithful with small things, begin today by tracking every dollar, by honoring small commitments, by proving yourself trustworthy in modest matters. Each trait we have discussed can be developed through intentional practice over time. And here is the beautiful part. As you develop these traits in pursuit of wealth, you are simultaneously developing as a person, as a spouse, as a parent, as a believer. Character built in one domain transfers to others. The discipline you develop around finances will make you more disciplined in your health, your relationships, your spiritual life. This is one of God's great efficiencies, that the work you do to become capable of wealth also makes you capable of so much more. I want to make something crystal clear at this point in our conversation. If you have been finding value in what I am sharing, if you sense that there is something here that could change the trajectory of your financial life, I want to invite you to take a simple step that will help us continue this journey together. Subscribing to this channel is not just about showing support, though I deeply appreciate that. It is about creating a structure for your ongoing transformation. The character development we have been discussing is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong process that requires consistent exposure to the right ideas, the right principles, the right encouragement. Every time you watch a video on this channel, you are reinforcing the wealth-building mindset. You are counteracting the scarcity thinking that the world constantly promotes. You are surrounding yourself with a community of people who share your values and your aspirations. When you subscribe and ring that notification bell, you are making a commitment to your own growth. You are saying yes to the process of becoming the kind of person who can handle wealth wisely. You are joining thousands of others who are on this same journey from financial struggle to financial freedom. I release new content regularly, each video designed to build on what you have already learned, to address new aspects of the wealth-building journey, to encourage you when the path gets difficult. Do not let this be just another video you watched and forgot. Make it the beginning of something lasting by subscribing right now before you continue. Now let me address the obstacles that prevent people from developing the character of wealth. Understanding these obstacles is essential because awareness is the first step to overcoming them. The first major obstacle is what I call identity attachment to poverty. Some people have been poor so long that poverty has become their identity. They do not just experience financial lack. They see themselves as poor people. They have built their entire self-concept around struggle, around making do with less, around being the underdog. And while there can be dignity in handling hardship with grace, there is danger in becoming so attached to that identity that you unconsciously resist the very change you say you want. When poverty becomes your identity, wealth feels like a threat rather than a blessing. Success feels like betrayal of who you are. Abundance feels uncomfortable, unfamiliar, almost dangerous. And without consciously realizing it, you sabotage opportunities that would break you out of the struggle you claim to want to escape. If this resonates with you, you need to do the deep work of redefining your identity. You are not a poor person trying to become rich. You are a child of God, created for abundance, temporarily experiencing lack because you have not yet developed the character to steward wealth well. The difference might seem subtle, but it is profound. The first identity makes wealth foreign to who you are. The second identity makes lack temporary, and wealth your birthright as you grow into it. Begin to see yourself as someone becoming wealthy, rather than someone trying to escape poverty. Speak about your future in terms of what you are building, rather than what you are escaping. Notice when your language and thoughts reveal an identity attachment to struggle, and consciously choose different words that align with who you are becoming. The second major obstacle is what I call comfort with dysfunction. Human beings are remarkably adaptable creatures. We can get used to almost anything if we are exposed to it long enough. And this adaptability, while often a strength, becomes a weakness when we get comfortable with things that are destroying us. Many people have become so comfortable with their financial dysfunction that change feels more threatening than the dysfunction itself. They have learned to cope with perpetual stress. They have normalized living paycheck to paycheck. They have adjusted their expectations so thoroughly that they no longer feel the pain that should motivate change. The debt does not sting like it once did. The missed opportunities do not hurt like they should. The gap between their potential and their reality no longer troubles them the way it once troubled them. They have made peace with mediocrity. This comfort with dysfunction is dangerous because it removes the motivation necessary for change. Change requires energy, effort, discomfort. If your current situation is comfortable enough, you will not find that energy. You need to reconnect with the pain of your current situation, not to wallow in it, but to let it fuel your transformation. You need to look clearly at what your financial dysfunction is costing you in missed experience, in stress transferred to your children, in years of life spent worrying instead of living, in purposes unfulfilled and potential unrealized. Let yourself feel that cost deeply enough to generate the motivation for change. The third obstacle is blame and external attribution. Some people have perfected the art of explaining their financial failures through external factors. The economy is bad. Their boss is unfair. Their industry is dying. Their parents did not teach them about money. Their spouse spends too much. The rich have rigged the system. While external factors certainly play a role in our lives, those who build wealth take radical responsibility for their results regardless of circumstances. They ask what they can do rather than lamenting what was done to them. They focus on their sphere of influence rather than raging at their sphere of concern. They understand that victim mentality is incompatible with wealth building. If you find yourself habitually explaining your financial situation through external factors, you need to reclaim your agency. This does not mean denying that obstacles exist. It means refusing to give those obstacles the power to determine your destiny. Yes, you may have grown up poor with no financial education. What are you going to do about it now? Yes, the economy may be challenging. How can you find opportunity within that challenge? Yes, your industry may be disrupted. How can you adapt, retrain, reposition? Every obstacle is also an opportunity for those with eyes to see. The person who sees only obstacles will be stopped by them. The person who sees opportunities within obstacles will find paths that others miss. This is not positive thinking nonsense. This is the practical wisdom that distinguishes builders from complainers. The fourth obstacle is inconsistency and self-deception. This might be the most insidious obstacle of all, because it operates largely beneath conscious awareness. Many people believe themselves to be more disciplined, more responsible, more hardworking than they actually are. They have constructed flattering self-images that do not match their actual behavior. They remember their best moments and forget their typical patterns. They give themselves credit for what they intend to do rather than what they actually do. They are, in essence, lying to themselves about who they really are. And because they believe the lie, they cannot address the real problem. You cannot fix what you will not see. You cannot develop character that you believe you already possess. Combating this obstacle requires brutal honesty supported by objective data. Do not trust your memory or your self-perception. Track your actual behavior. Look at your bank statements to see where your money really goes rather than where you think it goes. Look at your calendar to see how you really spend your time rather than how you imagine you spend it. Ask trusted friends for honest feedback about your patterns and character. Seek out the truth about yourself even when that truth is uncomfortable. The temporary pain of accurate self-assessment is far preferable to the permanent pain of self-deception that prevents growth. Now I want to shift from obstacles to opportunities. I want to paint a picture of what becomes possible when you develop the character we have been discussing. I want you to see clearly what you are working toward, because vision provides motivation. When you develop the character of someone who deserves wealth, certain things begin to happen almost automatically. you begin to notice opportunities that you previously walked past without seeing. Opportunities are everywhere, but they are invisible to those without eyes to see them. Character development opens your eyes. The same world that seemed devoid of opportunity suddenly reveals itself as abundant with possibility. You will wonder how you missed so much for so long, and the answer is that you were not yet the person who could see it. When you develop this character, you begin to attract different people into your life, like in the realm of character. Those with wealth-building character are drawn to others with similar traits. They want to do business together, to collaborate, to share opportunities. As your character develops, your network begins to shift. People who would not have given you a second glance will seek you out. Doors that seemed permanently closed will begin to open. This is not magic. It is the natural result of becoming someone worthy of these connections and opportunities. Your reputation will precede you in positive ways. People will speak well of you when you are not in the room. Trust will be extended based on what others have experienced of your character. When you develop this character, your relationship with money will transform entirely. Money will stop being a source of stress and start becoming a tool you wield with confidence. You will make financial decisions from clarity rather than confusion, from strategy rather than emotion, from abundance rather than scarcity. You will experience peace about your finances even before your account balances reflect that peace, because peace is an internal state that precedes external circumstances for those with developed character. You will be able to handle setbacks without being destroyed, because your security will rest in your character, in your ability to generate and steward resources, rather than in any particular dollar amount. When you develop this character, you will be positioned to build wealth that lasts, not lottery winner wealth that evaporates within years, but generational wealth that blesses your children and grandchildren. You will be able to teach what you have learned, to pass on not just resources but wisdom, not just money but the character to manage it well. This is the legacy that truly wealthy people leave, not just the estate but the principles, the habits, the mindsets that enable each generation to build on what came before. This is what is possible for you, not through wishing, not through hoping, not through more information alone, but through the deliberate development of the character traits we have been discussing. Let me speak now about practical steps for character development in each area we have covered. These are not theoretical ideas, but actionable practices you can begin implementing immediately. For developing delayed gratification, start by instituting a mandatory waiting period before any non-essential purchase. If you see something you want, write it down and wait at least 72 hours before buying it. Most impulse desires fade when given time. Practice this discipline consistently until it becomes automatic. Additionally, create visual representations of your long-term goals and review them daily. The more vivid your vision of the future reward, the easier it becomes to sacrifice present pleasure. Set up automatic transfers to savings and investment accounts so that money is directed toward your future before you have a chance to spend it in the present. For developing purposeful industriousness, begin each workday by identifying the single most important task you could accomplish that day, and discipline yourself to complete it before attending to less significant matters. Most people fill their days with busy work while avoiding the high-impact activities that would actually move them forward. Reverse this pattern. Additionally, regularly ask yourself how you could add more value in your current position. What problems could you solve that no one has asked you to solve? What skills could you develop that would make you more valuable? What initiative could you take that would demonstrate your capacity for greater responsibility? Approach your work as preparation for the opportunities you want, rather than just fulfillment of current requirements. For developing faithful stewardship of the small, implement a tracking system for every dollar that flows through your life. This is not about budgeting in the restrictive sense, but about awareness. Most people have no accurate picture of where their money actually goes. The simple act of tracking creates consciousness, and consciousness enables choice. If you have small commitments you have been neglecting, honor them even if no one is holding you accountable. If you have small debts, pay them off systematically. If there are small areas of financial disorder in your life, bring them into order. These small acts of faithfulness prepare you for larger responsibility. For developing principled persistence, connect your financial goals to purposes larger than yourself. Goals rooted only in personal comfort are easily abandoned when discomfort arises. Goals connected to family, faith, impact, and legacy have staying power that transcends temporary difficulties. Additionally, cultivate relationships with others on similar journeys who can encourage you when your motivation flags. Join communities, find accountability partners, seek out mentors who have already traveled the path you are walking. Design your environment to support your persistence by removing temptations and adding reminders of your commitments. For developing accurate self-assessment and continuous improvement, establish regular practices of reflection and review. Weekly, examine how you did financially against your intentions. Monthly, review your progress toward larger goals. Annually, conduct a comprehensive assessment of where you stand and where you want to be. Invest consistently in your own development through books, courses, coaching, and mentoring. Never stop learning. Never assume you have arrived. The wealthiest people I know are the most committed learners I know, and this is not coincidental. For developing generous confidence, begin tithing if you are not already doing so, not as a religious obligation, but as a spiritual discipline that trains your heart in generosity and trust. Give strategically to causes you believe in. Look for opportunities to be generous in non-financial ways as well, with your time, your expertise, your encouragement. The more you practice generosity, the more you will experience the truth that giving expands rather than diminishes you. Simultaneously, work on your confidence through affirmation of true things. You are created in the image of a generous God. You are designed for abundance. You are capable of handling significant resources. Speak these truths to yourself until they sink from your head into your heart. For developing relational integrity, audit your current relationships for any that need repair. If you have broken trust with anyone, seek reconciliation and make amends where possible. Going forward, make your word your bond. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Under-promise and over-deliver. Build a reputation over time as someone who can be absolutely counted on. Develop your emotional intelligence through reading, through coaching, through intentional attention to how others receive you. Relationships are too important to leave to chance. For developing righteous ambition, give yourself permission to want great things. Write a vision for your life that is bold enough to require God's help to accomplish. Set financial goals that stretch you, that excite you, that connect to your deepest sense of purpose. Dream about what you could contribute if resources were not a limitation. Then work backward from that dream to the character and actions required to make it real. Let your ambition be fuel rather than fantasy by connecting it to daily practices and incremental progress. As we approach the conclusion of our time together, I want to leave you with a framework for ongoing character development that will serve you for the rest of your life. This is not a one-time message to be heard and forgotten. This is a compass for a journey that will continue for decades if you take it seriously. Here is the framework. Each week, select one of the 8 character traits we have discussed and make it your focus. Read about it. Pray about it. Notice how you demonstrate it or fail to demonstrate it in your daily life. Practice it intentionally in specific situations. At the end of the week, journal about what you learned and how you grew. Then move to the next trait. In 8 weeks, you will have worked through all 8. Then start again, and again, and again. Character development is not a destination but a direction. You will never arrive at complete character, but you can always be growing, always be developing, always be becoming more capable of handling the wealth that God wants to entrust to you. Here is the truth that I hope has become clear through everything we have discussed today. You have more control over your financial future than you probably realize. Yes, there are external factors. Yes, there are circumstances beyond your control. Yes, the path from where you are to where you want to be will not be easy. But the primary determinant of whether you will build lasting wealth is not outside of you. It is inside of you. It is your character. And character is something you can develop, something you can build, something you can strengthen through deliberate practice over time. This truth should be both sobering and encouraging. Sobering because it places responsibility squarely on your shoulders. You cannot blame your way to wealth. You cannot wait for external circumstances to change while your internal world remains the same. The work of character development is yours to do, and no one can do it for you. But this truth should also be encouraging because it means that your destiny is not determined by factors beyond your control. You are not dependent on the economy, on lucky breaks, on being born into the right family. You can begin developing the character of wealth today, regardless of your current circumstances. And as that character develops, your circumstances will begin to shift to match your internal reality. Remember that Rockefeller did not inherit his wealth. He built it from modest beginnings through consistent application of the principles we have discussed. He developed the character before he developed the fortune. He became internally wealthy before he was externally wealthy. And this is the pattern for everyone who builds lasting prosperity. It always starts within. It always starts with character. It always starts with becoming the kind of person who can be trusted with more. You are already that person in potential. The question is whether you will do the work to become that person in reality. I believe you will because you have stayed with me through this entire message. That persistence alone tells me something about your character. That willingness to engage with challenging ideas, to examine yourself honestly, to seek truth rather than comfortable lies. These are signs of someone on the path to transformation. Keep walking that path. Do not stop. Do not settle. Do not accept less than you were created for. You have the capacity for wealth because you were created by a wealthy God who delights in prospering his children. Now go develop the character that will allow you to receive, steward, and multiply what he wants to give you. Your financial future begins not when circumstances change, but when you change. And that change can begin right now, today, in this moment. The question is not whether you can become the kind of person who deserves to be rich. The question is whether you will. Let me say one final thing before we close. Everything I have shared with you today is based on principles that work. They work because they align with how God designed the universe to function. They work because they are rooted in eternal wisdom about human nature, about stewardship, about purpose and prosperity. But principles alone will not change your life. Knowledge alone will not build your wealth. What will change your life is the application of these principles, the consistent daily practice of these character traits, the long obedience in the same direction that transforms potential into reality. Do not make the mistake that so many make, hearing truth and feeling inspired, but never actually implementing what they have learned. Let this be different. Let this be the message that marked a turning point, not because of anything I said, but because of what you decided to do with what you heard. Decide now, commit now, begin now, and watch as your character develops, and your circumstances begin to align with the person you are becoming. This is your moment. Do not waste it. There is a story from the life of Rockefeller that I think captures perfectly the essence of what we have been discussing. When he was a young man working his first job as a clerk, he made a decision that would shape his entire financial future. He decided that regardless of how much he earned, he would save a portion, give a portion, and live on the rest. He kept meticulous records of every penny that came into his hands and every penny that went out. He treated that modest clerk's salary with the same seriousness that he would later treat millions. He developed his character around money when the stakes were small, and that character was ready when the stakes became enormous. The lesson here is profound. Your financial future is being determined right now in the small decisions you make with the resources you currently have. Every time you choose delayed gratification over instant pleasure, you are building the muscle that will serve you when the stakes are higher. Every time you bring excellence to your work regardless of whether anyone notices, you are establishing the pattern that will define your career. Every time you honor a small commitment or steward a small amount wisely, you are proving to yourself, to others, and to God that you can be trusted with more. I have seen this principle play out countless times. The person who cannot manage $500 will not be transformed by receiving $5,000. The person who is unfaithful with what they have will not suddenly become faithful when given more. But the reverse is also true. The person who faithfully stewards little will find themselves entrusted with much. The person who develops character in the small things will discover opportunities in the large things. This is not just motivational rhetoric. This is how the universe actually works because it is how God designed it to work. Consider where you are right now in your financial journey. Whatever amount you currently have, whatever income you currently earn, whatever situation you currently face, this is your training ground. This is where your character is being forged. This is where you prove what kind of steward you will be. Do not despise the day of small beginning. Do not think that real financial responsibility starts when you have more. Real financial responsibility is being built right now, in the choices you make today, in the habits you form this week, In the mindsets you cultivate this month, the person you are becoming in this season is the person who will handle whatever comes in the next season. Make sure you are becoming someone capable of handling abundance. I want to speak one more time to those who feel like they are too far behind, too old to start, too damaged by past mistakes, too broken by previous failures. I want to tell you that the God who redeems souls also redeems finances. The same grace that transforms sinners into saints can transform your relationship with money. It is never too late to begin developing the character we have discussed. Every day is a new opportunity to make different choices. Every moment is a chance to exercise a different response. The past does not have to dictate the future. Your financial history does not have to determine your financial destiny. Whatever mistakes you have made, whatever opportunities you have squandered, whatever debt you have accumulated, whatever chaos you have created, you can begin today to build the character that will create a different tomorrow. This is not naive optimism. This is biblical truth. God is the God of new beginning. He is the God who makes all things new. He is the God who takes what the enemy meant for evil and turns it for good. If you are willing to humble yourself, to learn, to practice, to persist, to develop the character traits we have discussed, there is no limit to what can be transformed in your financial life. It may take time. It will require effort. It will demand consistency. But it is absolutely possible. And it begins not someday, but today. Not when you feel ready, but right now. Not when circumstances improve, but in the midst of current circumstances. This is your invitation. This is your opportunity. This is your moment to decide what kind of person you will become and what kind of financial future you will create. Go forth from this conversation with a new sense of possibility and a clear sense of responsibility. Possibility because you now know that character can be developed and wealth can be built by ordinary people who commit to extraordinary principles. Responsibility because you can no longer claim ignorance about what is required. You know now what separates those who build lasting wealth from those who merely dream of it. You know the character traits. You understand the obstacles. You have practical steps for development. What you do with this knowledge is your choice and your responsibility. Choose wisely, act boldly, persist faithfully, and may the God who began a good work in you bring it to completion, transforming not only your character, but your finances, not only your bank account, but your legacy, not only your current situation, but the future of generations yet to come. This is what it means to have the character of someone who deserves to be rich, and this is what is now possible for you.